This is Kentucky Afield Radio. This is Ron Rohde, Kentucky Afield's first host back in 1953. Now, I'm proud to present Charlie Baglin.
We have a bad habit in winter. We're a bunch of do-nothings. Besides going to work and school and a little basketball, we come home, close the door, and become experts in human hibernation. Well, I, for one, could use a little break from that. So we go inside outdoors with the Kentucky Department of Travel to look at the long list of what makes winter a winter. And weekend adventure just what you need. We warm up to winter travel next on Kentucky Afield Radio.
Boys were in trouble. About 10 seconds later, said boys were going down.
A true story.
And it sunk right out from under us.
20 degrees.
Within seconds, one boating trip went
straight down.
The water was bone-chilling.
Once you hit that water, it's so cold you can't move.
The human body wasn't designed for this.
It took my breath away as soon as I hit it, and my hands were so cold in a matter of seconds that I couldn't pop the clip on my waders to get them off.
Conditions were so bad it's amazing that anybody survived.
Perfect for duck hunting, but not for a swim in the middle of a river.
Going overboard is never the thought.
You have to think ahead.
Fun can turn frantic in seconds.
There's no time to react when your world just sinks out from under you.
3 hunters, 2 survivors, 1 reason.
Your life jacket's got your back.
Make sure your first mate isn't your last.
I really don't think that I could have made it without a life jacket.
Your Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife reminds you, your life jacket's got your back, and the backing of sportsmen on winter water everywhere. Welcome to the show. This is Charlie Baglin, and you're listening to Kentucky Afield Radio, talking about wintertime and traveling. 2 words that may not always go together, but get this. If you still need a little vacation, a little getaway, we all do. Lots to see and do right here in our home state. One of my favorite sayings I wrote for a commercial some years ago, Kentucky, the grass is always greener where it's blue. There is a book, and you probably have it, that tells you where you can travel. It's called Your Checkbook. And in the studio to talk about opportunities right here at home, Seth Wheat from the Office of Adventure Tourism and Scottie Ellis with the Kentucky Department of Travel. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
If I'm anything like my friends on Facebook, I hate winter. But I'm not like my friends on Facebook. I have learned to embrace winter.
You're embracing it. Good for you. I need to learn to do that.
That came about for me in 1997 when a friend of mine said, "Oh, I hate winter. Ooh, it's terrible." And so I decided, maybe it's not so bad. I took up snow skiing, and it's changed my life ever since. But there's a lot to do in winter, especially in Kentucky.
Absolutely.
That's what we want to talk about today. How do you all feel about winter?
I'm a fan of winter. Winter's high on my list. Birthday, Christmas, duck season, no snakes, no mosquitoes, no ticks. I'm telling you, there's a lot of good going on in wintertime.
I'm all for the no mosquitoes and no ticks. But I like to get out and do trails and things like that during the winter, but I am more of a warm-natured girl.
Yeah, it sounds to me like you prefer summer.
I do.
You're just sitting there making something up.
I love fall, though. Fall's perfect.
Yeah.
It's just I'm very cold. I'm cold-natured. I like things to be a little bit warmer.
Now, winter in Alaska would be cool. If we were in Alaska, I think the Aurora Borealis would be neat to see if we could see it here. But we can't. But we can do some other things instead. And 2 of the big things in winter, on my list anyway, bald eagles are in this state. And it's a really cool time to go out and see Rocky Mountain elk, the elk tours. We'll talk about wildlife, of course, because we're Kentucky Afield Radio, but there's a lot to see and do if anybody that wanted to take off for a few days or a long weekend around the state. What is the one thing you wanted to bring up first?
First, I think I'd just like to briefly go over what we do in adventure tourism. And our job, quite simply, is to promote and develop opportunities for outdoor recreation all throughout the Commonwealth. And that includes what you just mentioned, wildlife watching. And winter is a great time for that, and we have some great opportunities at our Kentucky state parks. The western parks around our Kentucky Lake and Lake Barkley, they do eagle watches out of Kentucky Dam Village, Ken Lake, and Lake Barkley in January and February. And then if you backtrack over to far eastern Kentucky, you can get in on some elk watches at Genuine State Resort Park and Buckhorn State Resort Park. And there's really two different seasons for the elk watches. We have a fall season, which runs up to about the first week of December, and then they pick up again in January and run through March. So you've got a couple opportunities to see things like that. And another one that we haven't mentioned yet are the Sandhill cranes, which you can see out of Barren River Lake State Resort Park.
Let's just start with eagles. Well, where do you go at these parks, and what are these eagles all about?
There's a couple different ways you can see the eagles. You can either go on a luxury boat tour, so that might be for the little faint of heart of us who might not want to be bitterly cold, but they also do some bus tours, and I think Seth can probably talk more about that, but both are great experiences, and they're both great ways to see the eagles. And that specifically, there's one coming up right away. It's at Kentucky Dam. It's January 9th through January 11th, and you've got those two options to see the birds there.
All the specific dates are on the website, parks.ky.gov, but I think it's a weekend event, and you can pick whichever day of the weekend you'd like to do.
And so it's perfect if you want that winter getaway and you want a fire and to do the nice little cozy cottage. All the state parks, a lot of the state parks have those available, and many of them are open through the winter season. So that's a great way to get a little weekend getaway and also see something unique that you can't see everywhere.
I went on one of these tours with my wife, and we saw 40 eagles, and it was just really cool. It was worth the trip because you'll never see eagles other than maybe on a back of a dollar bill.
No, you sure won't, and especially in those numbers. I mean, you will not have an experience like this anywhere else. And so we're pretty lucky to have this in our own backyard in the state. And so for those who are visiting, or if you're here, and again, you just want that little weekend getaway, it's a great opportunity.
Elk watching. How do you take part? And what do you see when you go on an elk viewing tour?
Well, like you mentioned, the population has really taken off, and it's doing very well here in Kentucky. And our state parks, especially the ones in eastern Kentucky, have some great naturalists. And what you do is you will go to a park, and very similar to the Eagle Watch, you can buy a combination package, which will include your lodging and perhaps some meals, and you'll get up very early in the morning, you'll pack onto the bus, and you'll drive up into the hills where these naturalists have pinpointed where the herds are. And so you can go and you can view them with binoculars, and you can take pictures of them, and if you're lucky enough to do it in the breeding season, you can hear the elk bugle, which is an amazing sound. And so it's very similar to the Eagle Watches, and you can buy these package deals, and it's really a unique thing to Kentucky. We have obviously the largest elk herd east of the Rocky Mountains, and a lot of people may not be aware of that. So that provides us with a lot of opportunity to get out and see these animals in their natural habitat.
I have heard, correct me if I'm wrong, Kentucky's herd is larger. If you took all of the other elk herds east of the Rockies, put them together, that would be about the size of Kentucky's herd.
I feel like I've heard that statistic also.
I have as well.
There's around 10,000 or so elk in this state. It's been a long time ago, but when you say you get up early and pack on a bus, how early?
I don't know.
I'm thinking it was like an hour before sunup.
I think so, too.
So you are out, this is in eastern Kentucky, and I think we were on a reclaimed strip mine someplace.
Sure.
Because of that, these elk have great habitat. And, boy, you could see the steam coming out of their nose, the sun coming up through the fog and a mist.
You do load up at about 5 a.m., but it is worth it, and it goes till about midday, depending on what you're seeing, but it's worth it to get up early. That one day you can drink some coffee, you can wake up.
It's a neat adventure. Which park are these headquartered in?
There are two for the elk watches. Genuine State Resort Park in Prestonsburg, and then Buckhorn Lake State Resort Park in the community of Buckhorn.
So parks.ky.gov,
that's it.
Website, we'll find it. Now, your website, Scottie, sort of takes in everything that all of the fun agencies in the cabinet of tourism for government does. That would be parks, travel tourism, fish and wildlife. Are there more?
Outdoor adventure is a great one as well with Seth's office. And so KentuckyTourism.com is a great landing page for you to figure out what you're looking for, where you want to go, regardless, especially if you're going with a family and everyone has different interests. Regardless of what those interests are, you're going to find something that can meet those needs of each individual you're going with. KentuckyTourism.com.
There's a search tool on there that's quite elaborate. What will it help you find once you're there?
People are going to be really pleased when they visit our website right now. We just redesigned it, and so those search capabilities have improved even more so. And and you can go to the top search engine bar. You can type in just keywords if you're interested in hiking or hunting, or if you're interested in, bourbon or museums. Like I said, those variety of interests that may be within one family, it's going to pull up a list of things that meet those keywords specifically. And not only will it pull up just sites where you can visit, but it will also pull up key events. So if you're looking in a certain period of time and you think, this would be cool if I could go to see that, but you wouldn't have automatically known as a visitor, it will pop up, it'll let you know, and so that way you can add it onto your trip and make it even more fun.
Sounds like a great search engine.
We're pretty pleased with it.
I think Google could learn from you.
Well, we might be learning from Google.
We're talking about off-season getaways. My name is Charlie Baglin, and we'll be back to chat more. Stay with us on Kentucky Afield Radio. We're back on Kentucky Afield Radio. This is Charlie Baglin, and I like to travel. St. Augustine, I've always admired these words. The world is a book, and for those who don't travel, they read but a single page. A lot to be said for traveling, and it's not something exclusive to summer. And in Kentucky, there's a lot to see and do. We're talking to a couple of folks from the Kentucky Department of Travel and the Office of Adventure Tourism. Scottie Ellis and Seth Wheat are with me in the studio. Sandhill cranes offer also opportunities. Where can you go to see them?
The Sandhill cranes migrate through the state of Kentucky, like several species of waterfowl. And their main migration corridor is right through central Kentucky, and one of their major stopping points is Barren River Lake State Park in Barren County. So the park has capitalized on this idea and provided a great service to people who are interested in seeing these huge, magnificent birds. And they have, similar to the elk, similar to the eagles, they have wildlife viewing opportunities. You'll get up early, you'll load in the van, you'll have your coffee, and you'll go out and you'll see them around the lake shore, and you'll see them on sandbars on the lake and different areas where they know that they're roosting and feeding and spending the majority of their times. And those go on the last 2 weekends in January out of Barren River Lake State Resort Park.
So you can depend on these sandhill cranes like clockwork.
From what I understand, it's like clockwork, absolutely.
I've heard of hummingbirds coming back to the same yard in the spring. Mm-hmm. The swallows at Capistrano on the same day every year. Sandhill cranes sort of similar.
Yeah, and it's they make a very interesting sound. I've spent a lot of time down in that region just seeing friends and things like that, and it's not uncommon for this time of year to have a flock fly overhead, and they make a very distinct sound that I'm not going to try to replicate, but you know what it is when you hear it, and they're these, very large birds, and you look up and you think, oh, wow, how cool is that? And you can tell that they're heading towards the lake, or they're getting off the lake and heading parts further south.
Well, you can understand what the honking sound of a goose or a quack of a mallard. Is anything similar? Does it sound like maybe a dog barking or a frog? What would it... Make something up. Stir my imagination with what this sound would be.
To me, it's not akin to a goose or a mallard. It has a repetitive quality. Have you ever heard them, Scottie?
I have. They are very
Can you help me here? Can you help paint this picture?
Well, no, I have.
Sound like Barbra Streisand hitting a high note. I don't know. Now I'm interested. So Sandhill Cranes, Barren River Lake State Resort Park. That's Glasgow Bowling Green area, if you're not familiar. It's only on 2 weekends?
I believe that is correct. Double-check the website again to make sure, but I believe it's the last 2 weekends in January.
I thought I had made a note. There it is. Nature Watch Weekend, January 23 and 24, and then January 30th and 31st, Lucas, Kentucky.
Usually you'll see quite a few, and the way that they have this, organized is so that you're going during the prime time, and then you're going with people who are very educated on the bird and the environment in the Barren River Lake. And so you're probably going to see quite a few. It's definitely worth getting up and going.
When you see them flying, I think you generally see flocks of around a dozen or so when you see them in the air. But they will all congregate at similar locations around the lake. So if you see them on the ground, you're likely to see a much larger group than if you see them up in the air flying. At least that's been my experience with it.
Describe what they look like, a sandhill crane. For some reason, I see that they have, very long legs and their knees bend the wrong way.
I think that's right. They are long. They have long legs, long skinny legs. They have a distinctive gait. They have a very large wingspan, and they are fairly good-sized birds in and of themselves, and I think they're much more similar to the herons or the shorebirds you're talking about down on coastal Louisiana than they would be a Canada goose or any of our other goose species.
The Almighty gave us iPhones for a reason. I'm going to look up just a picture of it right here because I'm utterly embarrassed that I don't know more about these.
I would agree with Seth's description. They do fit that heron type look, and they're quite large.
Yeah, their knees do bend the wrong way. Look at that, Scottie.
I know.
I would hurt myself.
Yeah, we're not made to do that.
Last time I did that was high school basketball.
And it didn't end up well, I'm sure.
No, that's a pretty bird. And so that's worth seeing. Let's say, so we got probably the three biggies out of the way already for nature. What's one thing going on in winter that a guy like me is just overlooking?
Well, I think one big thing, which, often might fly under the radar, Shaker Village. So they're in Harrodsburg, Kentucky. They are a historic site for the Shaker communities, but they are doing Winter Explorer weekends. So for the person who kind of wants to get more hands-on with their trip, they've got weekends, and they begin in January, and you can go ahead and sign up now. But they have weekends on homesteading and self-sufficiency. They've even got a weekend on wildlife conservation, primitive skills, and survival. So if you're really wanting to get outdoors and learn how, you could spend a weekend and do all these great things, Shaker Village is one of the best places to go and learn from experts. You spend a weekend there in one of their lodge areas, and you get to learn hands-on. Survival.
Get your attention, no matter what it is. And I don't know how long I could survive. I don't know if I could go for a few days. But that does sound interesting, of how to take care of yourself when the world around you has failed you.
One other one that they have is landscape and habitat management. So you never know when these skills can come in handy, but if anything, it's just a cool experience that you can't have in many places.
I like the idea of landscape and habitat management. One thing that anybody in conservation has learned, if you want to have the animals are great, but if they don't have any place to live, you're not going to have the animals.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're going to die off in a hurry. We found that with quail and rabbits and you name it. You talk about landscape habitat management. Is this around your backyard, or is this around your back 40?
That's a good question. The Shaker Village website would probably have more information on that, and then that way you can find out exactly what you're getting yourself into. But from my understanding with their other classes, they have different levels, so they might talk about the different environments that you could use these skills in.
And this is called what?
It is called the Shaker Village Winter Explorer Weekends. And you can go to our website, KentuckyTourism.com, and search Shaker Village from there to access their website.
Okay. You going to go, Seth?
I don't know if I'll have time to go. We've got a pretty busy winter doing a lot of other things, too. But it sounds like a lot of fun.
What are you doing?
We have two more special events I want to talk about that only happen in the winter, and they're also at state parks. Carter Cave State Resort Park has the Winter Adventure Weekend, and that happens the last weekend in January. That's the 23rd through the 25th this year, and you can participate in activities there that you can't always participate in at other times of the year. They do special canoe and kayak trips, they do special cave exploration trips, they do rock climbing, and they do rappelling, and they do guided hikes, and several other things that people will come from miles around, from near and far, to participate in during this weekend. The other one is at Pennyrile Forest State Resort Park, and this is a new thing for them. They're doing a family adventure weekend, which is a little more low-key, a little more inclusive to young children and older grandparents and things like that, but that's going to happen the 16th through the 18th of January. So those are two events that we have going on at state parks that only happen in the winter, and the one at Carter Caves has been wildly popular. A lot of their trips will sell out early, so you need to get online and check the availability, and Pennyrile hopes that they're going to have the same kind of success with their weekend, and we anticipate they will too. The other events that we have throughout the year, a lot of those will slow down in the winter due to the snow and the cold and the things we talked about earlier. But winter, to me, is such a great time just to get outside, to be outside. Like I mentioned, you don't have to put up with the bugs and the mosquitoes and the ticks. You have fewer leaves on the trees, so you get to see landscapes and see these vistas that you don't get to see any other time of year. Oftentimes the trails are less crowded, or the recreation areas are less crowded. You can have huge tracts of land all to yourself and really get out in nature and really experience it. So it's a fun time for me to get outside.
I was backpacking once upon a time, It was, I don't know, January maybe. Snow all over the place. By myself, miles into the woods. Walking the next day back to the car, it dawned on me, I said, I haven't seen anybody anywhere. And right at that time, I slipped on some ice and fell. And not 2 seconds later, I looked up, and here comes a hunter and his son. And they saw me fall.
I'm grinning.
You're snickering. The timing on that was terrible. Sure. You mentioned Carter Caves. And caves are cool because they're warm in the winter, comparatively.
They're cool in the summer and warm in the winter, absolutely.
They're year-round, about 50 degrees?
High 50s, around 60, I think.
This is nice in there. If it's 20 outside, snow everywhere.
Go in there and warm up for a little bit.
Yeah. idea.
And so I would recommend, personally, Carter Caves.
Mammoth Cave, the national park.
Mammoth Cave. That's worth going to.
It is.
You could spend a full day or spend a weekend just running around in caves.
The caves are obviously the highlight at Mammoth Caves, but they have so much to do above ground now. They have an intricate trail system for mountain biking and hiking and horseback riding. You can really spend weeks there. And one of the more popular paddling trips in the state of Kentucky is the Green River, which flows right through Mammoth Cave National Park. And that's a beautiful float trip, too.
Oh, yeah.
It really is.
Isn't there a part of, the Green River, or is it the Nolin River, that actually flows back into a cave and you can paddle underground for a little bit?
It could be both, because they both flow through the park at certain portions.
It's time for a break. Let me say this, though. Charles Kuralt had a show called On the Road. He says this: thanks to the interstate highway system, it's now possible to travel all across the country, coast to coast, without seeing anything. If you're going to travel around Kentucky, take some of those back roads, and that is traveling. Back with more in a minute. This is Charlie Baglan on Kentucky Afield Radio. This is Charlie Baglan back on Kentucky Afield Radio. If there's a show you would like to hear again, or maybe even this show you'd like to hear again or share on Facebook, there's 3 places you can find it. myhuntingandfishing.com. You can also find us on iTunes and on YouTube. Just put in the search box Kentucky Afield Radio, and we'll pop up. More on Kentucky winter adventures. First up, our fishing report. Kentucky Afield Radio, this is Charlie Baglan. Our show this hour is all about warming up to winter travel. Back with more after the break.
Hi, I'm Sadie. When I was born in '94, so was an idea: Kentucky Nature license plates. Over the years, they've featured butterflies, hummingbirds, and 2 words: nature's finest. These plates have helped safeguard more than 80,000 acres of wilderness areas, a number that's grown as I have, and I can't wait to see what's down the road. See with me. Next time you renew, choose a nature plate, and pick the plate that keeps the bluegrass green.
Charlie Baglan back on Kentucky Afield Radio into our second half hour, talking about things to do in Kentucky in the wintertime. Maybe not the most popular time to travel, but it is if you like to travel in a time that's less crowded. Rates are down. Seth Wheat from the Kentucky Office of Adventure Tourism is with me. Also, Scottie Ellis from the Kentucky Department of Travel. Before we went to break, we were talking about Mammoth Cave and an opportunity to canoe underground. Where else can we do that?
Lost River Cave in Bowling Green, Kentucky, near Mammoth Cave National Park. They're actually, just this past fall, they introduced paddling trips through their system as well. And so that's a great spot to go in addition to the others.
My big sister and I went to Mammoth Cave, must be 20, 25 years ago now, and there was a fellow there, a tourist, and boy, he was taking pictures of everything. He was so excited, taking pictures of everything, every stalactite, every stalagmite, every rock formation. Boy, he was crazy about this, loved Mammoth Cave. Got way down in there, and you've been on these tours. They turn off the lights to show you how dark it is. And he took a picture of the dark. And he used a flash to do it.
Oh.
People never laugh so hard in their life. But you have to admire his enthusiasm for the cave.
You do.
That's one of those stories I will never forget. It reminds me of Old Faithful once, and I walked up. There was a fellow sitting there. If you've ever been to Yellowstone National Park, and there's a fellow sitting there, and I walked up and said, "What time is the next eruption?" And said, "Well, I don't know. There's no way to know. You just have to sit here and hope and pray that it actually will erupt." I said, No. It's very predictable. That's why they call it Old Faithful. It's marked over in the visitor center. I just haven't been there. It took him by utter surprise. We're having fun in winter in Kentucky. No place to snow ski anymore here since General Butler closed shop back in the 90s. But that would be nice. So that in case you still hate winter, well, just know that we're not cold enough to have a ski resort here.
Look into the positive.
Right. Some of the things going on in winter only happen in winter, and boy, do you ever have a big turnout. And I'm wondering how much your offices are involved in the long list of sport, boat, and vacation shows.
It is amazing to see the crowds, especially the Louisville event. It's almost mind-blowing to see how many people will come out. People are very passionate about it. You can learn quite a bit. Does
adventure tourism have any role in these type of events?
Absolutely. Several years ago, we used to attend a big one in Cincinnati. We would attend the Louisville show with the Department of Fish and Wildlife. We'd partner with them and put in a booth together. And now I think we send a lot of information through our proxies, like Scottie over here, so she can help spread the good word for us.
You are a proxy. Does it say that on your business card?
It does not.
I am a proxy.
One that we do, though, still, is we go to Chicago every winter to a very large travel and adventure show that they host every January. That's very exciting for us because we get to go to places we don't spend a lot of time in, and we get to tell the good word about the state of Kentucky to people who don't always get to hear it. And the interest that has grown just over the past few years in all things Kentucky, it's been really remarkable to see. You know, we keep track of the questions we get asked, and we're always getting asked about the Bourbon Trail, and we're always getting asked about Keeneland and Churchill Downs. We're always getting asked about some of the new food opportunities we have, which is a big thing right now. And we get asked about our adventure opportunities, too. And so people are becoming more aware, I think, of how cool Kentucky is, and they're becoming much more interested in traveling down here. But to the original point, that's another large show with people from all over the world that come together, and they've got seminars, and they've got travel destinations, and they've got travel agents, and they try to put all these package trips together for you. And it's just amazing the things you can see and the things you can learn at these kinds of shows in the wintertime.
I do think, to Seth's point, we do have a lot of different events. You know, a lot of times you'll look at travel advertising, and what you see, if you take the names away from the ads and you see one from one state and one from the other, they often could be exchanged. They look quite similar. Kentucky, that's not the case. We have a lot of only ones, which on our website they talk about that, Kentucky only ones. There's only one, Mammoth Cave.
Oh, yeah. I've heard that commercial. That was excellent. I heard the radio version. I've seen the TV. Excellent. Well done commercial.
We're very lucky to have those unique adventures, and the great thing is, with Kentucky, although we have a very wide state, you can drive, and so it makes different areas and different activities easily accessible. If you want to have 2 days at Red River Gorge, but you're also interested in a great culinary experience, Lexington is not a far drive, and you can go to a distillery there, you can go to new restaurants, but also like Winchester, the Beer Cheese Trail, or if you want to go to Pikeville, they've got a new culinary restaurant called the Blue Raven, and it's excellent. It's getting national attention. And so, you can never have a trip without good food, and so regardless of the adventure you're looking for, Kentucky can offer different ways for you to get all those different activities in.
It's nice to know your audience and who we are talking to today. We are on radio stations across the state of Kentucky, so by and large, we're talking to Kentuckians who want to get out and explore a little bit of their own state this winter. Options that maybe they didn't know were available. Seth, you mentioned telling the story of Kentucky to people who often don't get to hear it. Mm-hmm. Who is our audience? Who do we spread this word to? How far out does it reach? Chicago, New York, England? Where do we go to try to amass a group of tourists to come to see us?
Well, in certain instances, we go everywhere. With our website and our social media, we're getting followings and we're getting visitation on our sites from across the country. For my world specifically, the adventure tourism world, that's half the country. We spend so much time in this industry trying to identify markets and who our target audiences are. 1 in 2 Americans participate in some kind of outdoor recreation. So that's who I talk to. I talk to everyone. I talk to old people, I talk to young people, and I talk to people of all backgrounds. So it's easy, I think, to get that message across. Scottie and the guys down in the Department of Travel, they've really identified places of where we can really have the most impact with our message, where are we going to get the most bang for our buck, because we all have to be mindful of our resources now. So they've done a really good job of putting together not only the message that we're trying to send, but also identifying the best places to send that message.
So where do you send your message, Scottie? If you're paying to air this Kentucky Only One commercial, where do you air it?
So we are primarily a drive state, so we really do target the drive markets, whether that be Chicago's a drive market for us, Indianapolis, Nashville, the southern eastern side of the states, those really are drivable, and so it makes sense for us to market to those areas. In addition, we also do media missions to different parts of the states farther out of that drive area. Recently, we go to New York, and it's always that surprise factor we get with audiences there and consumers there who say, oh, I didn't know Kentucky had, the longest cave system, or I didn't know that they had one of the best rock climbing spots in eastern Kentucky. Not just in eastern Kentucky, but across the U.S., one of the best. And so it's always that surprise. And we did that in California as well. We went to San Francisco, and a lot of those people were pleasantly surprised. But primarily, the drive markets are our number one target. We also are trying to do an international reach. Canada is perfect for us because we have the interstate that goes right through Kentucky. The snowbirds, they're trying to get out of Canada and head down to Florida, and we want them to stop for a night, 2, 3, and hopefully they stop in Kentucky versus one of our surrounding states. And then we also, the UK, we have a agency over there that we work with very closely. A lot of them have seen the gateway destinations like that of New York and Orlando, and now they're wanting the authentic experience, and Kentucky is seen as that authentic experience. So you can't have that anywhere else, and the stories and the people you'll meet and the experiences you can have, it's very unique.
All right, let's do some trivia. Which is closer to Kentucky? Let's say I'll put you in a very northernmost part. Let's say you're in Covington, Kentucky. Which is closer, New York City or Canada?
Canada.
Right.
Good job, Scottie.
I don't know by how many miles, but you have to scoot up through Ohio and go to, Detroit, and you're there.
It's actually not that far at all. And
maybe 6 hours, maybe, I'm not sure.
It's a little bit over 6, but not too much longer, so depending on the traffic you run into. But that's our biggest thing, is educating the audiences there that it is just a quick drive, and you could do it on a long weekend if you wanted to. And so there's a lot of possibilities there for us.
You are from Henderson, Kentucky. And boy, when I was looking on your website of things going on in winter, Scottie, Henderson, Owensboro area, it's amazing. John James Audubon has a program coming up on the 13th of February called Walk on the Wild Side Animal Rescue. I've never rescued an animal, but I've known people that have, and wildlife rehabilitators. But this is geared for pretty much all ages, toddlers 3 to 5, 60-minute interactive program will show how nature and wildlife sort of work together, and if an animal is found that is hurt, how you can rescue that animal. Could you go on your website and just put in John James Audubon or Henderson or Owensboro or pick the town you want to know and just find out everything that's going on in a given area?
You sure can, and you can type in the cities, you can type in the activities you're looking for, and the great thing is if you're looking for something that might be at a state park, our website connects with the state park website as well as the outdoor adventure site, and so you'll have all of those results filtered through so you can see them all in one listing.
Valentine's Day. Rebecca Ruth, is that uniquely Kentucky?
It is, yes.
There's a good chocolate source.
Sure.
Any other chocolatiers?
There's Rebecca Ruth, there's Art Eatables, there's Cellar Door Chocolates. There's quite a few. We're pretty lucky in the chocolate area. Here in Kentucky, we have a lot of unique candy makers. We've got Art Eatables, which was in the official Oscar bags last year, and they're in Louisville. They're all infused with bourbon, so whether you're having a good or bad Valentine's Day, these candies could be a solution for you.
Change your outlook on the whole day.
That's the way I like to look at it.
We're talking about winter tourism around our state, things to see and do, and all that is required extras that this time of year, you got to put on a coat. Back with our final few, so stay with us. This is Kentucky Afield Radio. We are back on Kentucky Afield Radio. This is Charlie Baglin with our final few. And we're talking about fun things to do in winter around our Commonwealth. Now, one of those, we were talking about caves a while ago, mega caverns. That's Louisville, right?
It is.
Commercial place, but I don't mind to give them a plug. It's a great thing to do in the winter if you're looking to warm up and still be outside, sort of, even though you're down in a cavern.
Absolutely. So you can do all types of adventures at mega caverns, zip lines. You can do the challenges where you're like on the tightrope, and of course you're strapped in, you're safe. But they're also about to open up a bike trail system in mega caverns, and you might be able to speak more than that, but that's going to be huge for the Louisville area. A really cool event space for people who are interested in trail bikes and things like that.
It's the first underground mountain bike park and skills area. Certainly the first in Kentucky, possibly the first in the country. I'd have to double check that. But they have partnered with the Louisville chapter of the Kentucky Mountain Biking Association. And Louisville has a lot of people who are interested in mountain biking, and they've got together with the mega caverns. And the mega caverns is always looking at new opportunities and ways to bring new people in, and it's a really interesting place just in and of itself if you've never been to it. So we're very excited about the new mountain bike park, and that's going to be another thing that is absolutely unique to Kentucky that we'll be able to promote to people.
Talk to me more about adventure tourism. We've hit on it here and there throughout this hour. That would be things such as canoeing, mountain biking. Yes. What all is on that list?
The short version that I tell people is anything outside and fun that happens in the state of Kentucky, that's us. It's and you know, when you talk about what adventure tourism is and what that means to people, that's going to be different for every person. Hiking, biking, both mountain biking and road cycling, horseback riding, ATVs. We have a number of new zip lines. We have some of the best rock climbing, not only in the state, but in the country and even the world at the Red River Gorge. We have numerous caving opportunities. We've covered the wildlife watching opportunities, campgrounds near and far, and we also promote hunting and fishing on our site and with our resources too. So like I said, the easy answer is anything outside and fun.
What are some of the funner things that people come to Kentucky for anyway? And just because it's winter, you can still do it.
I think, a lot of people are really interested right now in bourbon, and the bourbon distilleries, that's a great time to take advantage of these. Typically, they're always open unless temperatures get so low that it puts the barrels at risk. So you can still tour the warehouses, the visitor centers, you can still taste the products, and so that's a great time to take advantage. Also, museums. We've got a lot of great museums that are often overlooked, whether that be the Ali Center in Louisville, the Slugger Museum there, and then, the Kentucky Horse Park in Lexington.
Where else scattered out in the state will you find museums?
So if you want to start in the western part of the state, they've got the Quilt Museum, and that's in Paducah, and that's really something to see. Owensboro, the International Bluegrass Museum, you get to learn about Bill Monroe, all the major bluegrass players. Eastern Kentucky,
Country Music Highway Museum in Paintsville, Kentucky. We have a lot of great country music artists that came off of the area surrounding US 23, and they've got a lot of great memorabilia and things in the Country Music Highway Museum.
That'd be Ricky Skaggs and some others, Louisa, and that sounds like a great place to go.
Absolutely. Just
down the road from that, of course, is Loretta Lynn's home place in Butcher Holler, which is a museum of sorts.
The original KFC
Corbin, Kentucky, the Colonel Sanders Museum, you can walk through that, and that is in Corbin, and so that's a great thing to do. You know, of course, a lot of people know Kentucky for KFC, and so that's a great place to visit. And then the Corvette Museum, which now in Bowling Green, they actually have a motor sport speedway right across the street from that. You'll see that a lot of people, when they buy their Corvette, they will go over and take their new Corvette on a test run around the speedway.
Nice.
And they're trying to accommodate visitors to see how they can get them involved in that as well.
That would be fun, Seth.
Yeah, we may have to schedule a test drive.
I'm ready. If they don't mind me and my Toyota Corolla, I would look hot out there.
No doubt.
One thing I always enjoy about Kentucky, it doesn't matter if it's summer, winter, spring, is Cumberland Falls, the Moonbow. That's something I've brought up on every show that we've ever done about fun things to do in Kentucky is the Moonbow.
And you have one of the most beautiful pictures from the Moonbow.
Thank you. But you can go down there. My wife and I went down the night we got married, Scottie. It was the 18th of January, and there was a full moon that night. And we went down for like the weekend and saw it. And it was really cool.
That's the perfect weekend after a marriage. That sounds ideal.
It was cold. The moon comes up early, and so you're not out till 2 in the morning. So it's worth looking at your calendar and go down and see the Moonbow at Cumberland Falls. It has to be clear. The moon has to be full, or at least a day or two either side of the full moon. It's worth the drive.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Anything else?
One of the things we haven't talked about yet, the Kentucky Trail Town program. Charlie, I'm sure you've heard of, Gatlinburg, Tennessee.
Sure.
And when people think about Gatlinburg, that's almost synonymous with the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. We didn't have very many communities in Kentucky that were set up and had a relationship similar to what you'd see in Gatlinburg and the Great Smoky Mountains. So we've been working on this program for the past few years, and we have 4 certified Kentucky trail towns. So I guess this would be another push for something to do in wintertime, as you can go see some of our new trail towns. Dawson Springs in western Kentucky, they serve the Pennyrile Forest and the Pennyrile Forest State Resort Park. Livingston, which is a very small community in Rockcastle County that sits in the heart of the Daniel Boone National Forest. We've also got the community of Moorhead, which is up near Cave Run Lake, and most recently the community of Olive Hill, Kentucky, which is located next to Carter Cave State Resort Park. So if you're looking for something to do, and maybe you've done some of the wildlife tours and you just need something new, I would highly recommend checking out one of our Kentucky trail towns, and you can find that on our website.
And I will add, with our social media being so big right now, we're really encouraging the visitors to take photos and share that through social media with the hashtag TravelKY. Help us promote the state, because through that, other people are seeing the great experiences that they can have, whether they live here in Kentucky or, they're outside of Kentucky. And it's a great way to kind of do your own part in capturing what all we have to offer.
Seth, Scottie, thanks a million. The last question I always ask my guests, do you text and drive?
I do not.
No, I do not.
Good, folks. Thanks a million.
Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie.
Seth Wheat from Adventure Tourism, Scottie Ellis with the Kentucky Department of Travel and Tourism. Website is KentuckyTourism.com, and then for Adventure Tourism, just put in a / Adventure Tourism. We are out of time. This is Charlie Baglin inviting you to join us in a week, and we will go inside outdoors again, right here on Kentucky Afield Radio.